Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a news story on Kamala Harris's rally in Savannah that happened yesterday. And you'll notice in this news story, the dude's talking about how, oh my God, people got here so early that you can see there's like 10 people in the background. It's like you're going to like a book show or something. Like it's like a meeting for a book club. There's like 5 people here. But no, the dude's like, "Oh, everyone got here so early." And then at the end he's like, "Oh yeah, there's people that got bussed in." So they're bussing people into another rally, and I mean, this is a pretty crazy thing.
It's been since 1992 since a presidential candidate came to Savannah, which was Bill Clinton in the hostess city.
They're showing
now,
the buses like it's an infomercial to buy a massive bus. They're like showing it off.
Arena itself, lines stretched around the venue, as I was just telling you, and people started getting here as early this morning for the vice president. But for those a little further away from the hostess city, shuttles to the rally contained a lot of excitement.
Shuttling people.
I was in Atlanta, and I heard that the vice president was going to be.
And then they've got an interview on the shuttle bus. This is like exclusive. Oh my God, they've got an interview on the shuttle bus
In Savannah, so I decided to just kind of beeline over here and check it out.
But why are you on a shuttle bus to go to a rally? So, I mean, that's just... So for the Kamala Harris rallies, they're openly, I mean, they've got buses. This is, again, I wonder what company this is that has these buses. This is a great commercial. I mean, you've got another photo of the buses. The buses are the star. The bus. There it is. They get in the bus. They come around. It's just like they pick up like 40 people. Remember, and this is not a joke, but barely anyone even knows this. Kamala Harris had that rally at the Desert Diamond Arena, the same arena that Trump had the rally at 2 weeks later and then sold it out when she had to bring the curtains down and cover up all the empty seats. But she still got like 15,000. And apparently that rally at just a public arena that formerly hosted an NHL team, it was invite only to an arena that seats 15,000. I mean, this stuff is just, it's so horrible. And their entire campaign is all fake hype. And you can say busted, it's all fake. Well, this is what happens when it's all fake hype. You can get away with it for like a few weeks, and then it all starts seeping out. The fakeness of it just starts coming through. Just like the interview last night, it's all so terribly fake. And we've got more reaction from this interview. I talked about it earlier. Why does it say live? Yeah, so CNN, I mean, I don't know what this is. You would think you would make it, a note that this is not live at all. It's being, and I'm sure they said at the beginning, oh, this is, pre-recorded, this is taped. But when you look at the clips, it says in the bottom right that it's live. And I guess CNN just leaves that up all the time, but that makes no sense. It's very clearly, and it's very important that people understand that this is not a live interview. This is a pre-taped interview, and they still leave the idea that it's live in the bottom right corner. So when you clip it, it looks like, and it gives the visual representation that it's live, and you can see in the top left, CNN exclusive. Well, that's fine. You can have a CNN exclusive with an interview here, but it's not live. That's a ridiculous lie, and it just makes no sense at all. You can see television mostly about visuals. Yeah, I mean, just look at these two. This is just, these people, you've got her sitting to the side, and then Waltz, it looks like he's being reprimanded by his teacher. He's about in 3rd grade. Looks like he's getting like I don't know, in-school detention or something. What is it? Lunch detention maybe is what he's getting, it looks like. And then just another thing that people were talking about, how bad Dana Bash was. Is it Dana or Dana? That's what Trump says. But I think it's Dana. Dana Bash with her talk with Harris and Waltz. And I've heard some mixed reviews from it. Some people saying, oh, she was tough on Harris. She asked hard questions. Other people, like this person, saying it was a friendly chat. But she was nasty to JD Vance. And it wasn't like, oh, these are good, hard, tough, stern questions that you need to ask a vice presidential candidate. This was nasty. Like, you can see.
You guys seem to be struggling a little bit. Kamala Harris has been calling the shots. As who? There's no evidence that Kamala Harris threw him overboard, called you and Donald Trump, and that is weird.
Sure.
You're saying Tim Walz doesn't have affection for his wife? I don't even understand that.
You're saying Tim Walz doesn't have affection for his wife? I don't even understand. Like it's just nasty. It's very nasty, the way that she was treating Vance, and it's just, it's crazy to see the comparison, especially when you think about the parallels of the Kamala interview, you would think it would be a lot harder considering she's been hiding. I mean, Vance does these Sunday interviews every Sunday, like 3 times. He does like 3 different interviews, and she just has this crazy attitude. That doesn't even make sense what you're saying. How like she does? It's not even like, oh, she's hard on him. She's got this snappy attitude. But with Harris, you would think she'd be harder on Harris because, my God, I mean, Harris is run from the media. She says she doesn't need the media. So you'd think the media would say, you need to answer some tough questions. We're not going to be too happy with you because you think you can win this election without talking to us. That's a little bit ridiculous. But she's way softer on Harris than she is Vance. When Vance is a VP candidate, Harris is the actual presidential candidate. Harris is the one that's running from the media. Vance does 3 interviews every Sunday, but she's so much harder on Vance. This is how you understand the bias, the blatant bias. And we know CNN is biased, but this is how you orchestrate it when you compare these 2 interviews. Someone that you would think they'd be way harder on Harris because she is the presidential candidate and she won't talk to the media and she's arrogant about it. But they're still very soft on her in comparison to this snappy, oh, how dare you? That doesn't even make sense what you're saying. And then even, I mean, it gets worse.
They have done both. They have both policies, and they are trying to
If you-
define
Dana,
it.
if you
You have been on the campaign trail questioning Tim Walls's military record. Governor Walz served 24 years.
Sure.
He even
She's simping for Waltz.
stayed after he could have retired because of 9/11.
Everyone knows he served 24 years. That's not the point. The point, but again, it's like she's the spokesperson for the Harris campaign.
More than the country asked of him. Do you honor his service? I will say that the Harris Walz campaign did say that the governor misspoke. That was a month before the National Guard even announced that it was possible that they would deploy to Iraq, and it ended up being 2 months. He retired 2 months before they actually got the paperwork. You know, I've seen a lot of states.
And she tries to use the lie that was the lie that they were using. They got called out on it. Liberals were saying that, oh, Waltz, he left 2 months before when he knew they were going. No. That turned out to be false, and she tried using it. It was like there were 2 different warnings. They were going, and then Waltz retired, and then they gave another warning about them going, and then they tried using the second warning when really the first warning already come out. That was what. So understand it's very deceitful what they're doing, but this is how you prove it. And look, I'm not saying, you know, some people think it was a softball interview last night, whatever. It's just, it shows you the attitude, you know, it's just completely different, and the bias is so blatantly clear. And you've literally got one of the candidates bussing in people. It's like they're doing an advertisement for a busing company. Like, oh, if you come to, I mean, like, these events are private. This is why I said Trump needs to have the biggest rally ever. We need the visual of 150,000 people in Bristol Motor Speedway. It would be so epic. It would just overwhelm everyone, and everyone would understand that Trump is winning, that Trump is just, there's just so much more patriotism within the Trump campaign. These people, you have to show people that the Democratic Party, they do not like the country. They don't. They have to bus people in. Nobody wants to go to rallies for this woman. You have to show that. You have to call it out, and it has to be very clear that Trump and his campaign, they've got so much more energy and they've got so much more love for the country. It's so, you have to jam it down people's throats. That's why you need to have a rally with around 150K, because Trump can do it. He can draw that much very easily. Think about it, guys. When you've got a massive rally like this and you pitch it with Elon Musk and RFK Jr., this is like bigger than the Super Bowl. I mean, the Super Bowl is, you know, it happens once a year. When you got these political rallies, it's really only once every 4 years. And if you do this thing where you go to Pennsylvania and you have a rally outside and there's like 10,000 people, Harris can do something like that. Now, of course, it's going to involve bussing people in, but she can kind of counter it, right? And that's what they've tried to do. They're like, oh, look at Harris. She sells this out. Trump only gets this much. Trump needs to destroy her and show that his movement is way stronger, because we know it is, but we need a visual representation for independents to understand that these things are not the same. I mean, Harris, you watch her last night, the big takeaway is that some people are not cut out for this. She's just not cut out to be a president. She can't, I mean, this has been a 40 days to prepare for this. 40 days, and she still gives total non-answers, and there's no ownership of anything. I mean, honestly, I feel like it's an easy answer. If you get asked the question, you know, you say you're going to do all these things, you've been vice president, why haven't you done them? If you're Harris, you should just say, listen, there's a big difference between being the president and vice president. I've gotten a lot of experience being VP. I think I'm ready to be president, but in terms of what I want to enact, it's very hard to do it as VP. I'm going to have a lot more power to be able to enact stuff that's going to help our country. You know, I like President Biden. I respect him. I thank him for picking me. But I feel like I can, but of course she can't go against Biden. So that's the problem with her, to where she's like, everything's just someone else's fault. It's COVID. It was Trump. You know, Trump didn't do things. Remember, it's always the whataboutism. They say, why didn't you do this? And then she says, well, Trump didn't do that. So there's no ownership of anything. And isn't it funny how they always say Trump's always about himself? He's selfish. He doesn't blame himself for anything. She's doing the exact same thing in her first interview. So that's also an interesting thing to look at. But their entire campaign is just so fake. And, you know, I'm sure people saw the Bloomberg polls that came out last night. I think Bloomberg might be the new Quinnipiac. You know what? I think I'm ready to say that, because those polls are just so ridiculous. But I mean, we've got, you know, people and different, you know, formulas coming out and saying that Trump now is the favorite. Even when you look at the polls and you look at the difference in between 2016, 2020, where we are in 2024, Trump vastly overperforming based on the polls. There's clearly something different. And CNN lying about this. Yeah, it was edited. They cut it down. The Harris campaign requested that the transcript was to not be released. They clearly had several times in that interview, whether it was Walter Harris, where they badly misspoke, and that was cut out of the interview. Why else would they say we're not releasing all of it? And the interview only ended up being 18 minutes, and half of the time during CNN's hour-long segment that they reserved for it, they weren't even talking. It wasn't even the actual interview. It was either a commercial or it was Dana Bash reflecting on the interview or giving context or something like that, where they were talking to the campaign. So they had to fill time because they cut out a lot of segments of the interview. And then the Harris campaign, I would imagine this was a deal that they did, considering CNN knew this was going to get a bunch of views. The Harris campaign said, we will give you her first interview, but we want it to be, number one, it's going to be edited. If there's things that we don't like, it's going to get taken out, right? You guys can ask your questions, whatever. I mean, people were like, well, Harris is looking down at her notes. I mean, that's what this says. You can see her looking down at her notes. She was given all the questions, things like that. People are wondering. So there was obviously a deal. The Harris campaign said, we know the first interview is going to get a bunch of views. We're going to leverage that, and we're going to say, all right, CNN, you can have it, but we want X, Y, and Z. See how fake all of this is? This is just ridiculous. She can't even give a legit interview without 40 things being pampered perfectly for her. They take away the transcript. You're not allowed to see it. They cut it down to 18 minutes because she probably misspoke 40 times. I mean, this is just absurd. And even the hard questions, she can't even answer. She cannot answer the hard questions like fracking. She says, oh, now I don't want to ban fracking, but I still love the Green New Deal. You just contradicted yourself in the same statement. Why would you even bring that up? It doesn't make any sense. So either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.